So this Birthlight postnatal yoga training is for anyone who would really like to know how to best support postnatal recovery for women in their classes, to ideally set up specialist classes for that time period, um, and to possibly work very early from birth, because our first practices are very gentle and everything is very progressive, and have a whole build up through the postnatal year back to what we would think of as a classic yoga practice, whatever style or tradition that might be. It could be, because it might be a specialist area they hadn't thought of going into. And, like many of us who've had pregnant students in our classes, we want to do the best for them rather than just say, oh, don't do this. Uh, leave this one out. We'd like to give them something to actually do. And the postnatal time can be a very vulnerable time for the pelvic joints, for example. Things are not stable straight away after birth. It takes time and progression. And also, I think the other really interesting thing is that many women come to yoga for the first time during pregnancy. So for them to hop straight into a regular class is quite a jump for many of them. And so the postnatal yoga will give them a really good basis to then enter into general classes as well. So the students on the postnatal yoga training course will learn all about the physiology, and how that's affected by the birth process, perhaps what's happened in that person's pregnancy journey as well. So that includes all the structures of the body, the physiology in terms of hormones and emotions and how those are affected, and how the bonding process is going on with their babies as well. And we aim to have students be able to teach classes where babies are present rather than having to leave them at home, because that's how most women will actually fit a class in. So the students will be able to use this qualification to set up and run specialist postnatal classes. If they're teaching a sort of mum and baby mixture of things, that will give them much more repertoire to add to what they may already know. And for teachers who maybe don't want to specialise in that area, it will be enabling them to really take care of those women in their classes and progress them into sort of more classic practices. So, for the teachers who have maybe women coming into a general class, or, freshly into a postnatal class, having never done any yoga before, I think what's really perhaps special about this course is that they'll learn to be a DJ. So they'll learn to cater for many different women's needs within the same group. So, of course, there are many practices that are beneficial for everybody, but it's how you tweak those so that they fit that person where they are at that particular time in their recovery, or taking into account any symptoms or issues that they might have. Yeah, so the anatomy on this course is quite detailed, but it's not all theoretical at all. So we do a lot of observation. Even though the course is online, you can still see a lot. So we do a lot of understanding in our own bodies of what's happening when we are in a particular posture, and we need to re-establish lots of sort of crucial things in a postnatal period. And sometimes those are re-establishing those, and sometimes they're setting them up for the first time from fresh, kind of thing. So we're looking obviously at posture and spinal alignment, and stabilizing the pelvic joints, but we're also thinking about regaining core strength as well, and how that integrates with the front of the body, the back of the body, and of course the pelvic floor. Whatever kind of birth a woman might have had, pelvic floor is always impacted by the pregnancy. So even if she's completely symptom free, it's something that's for life. So we need to take care of it. And that's often an area that teachers maybe who've come from a general training haven't dived into yet. So it's getting comfortable and familiar with all the terminology and having the confidence to really be clear in their teaching, so the women in their classes will understand what the practices are about, why they're beneficial, and how to do them. So this can be really useful for all teachers to know about, because postnatal is always postnatal in a way. And so women, have cycles, and things can happen during their cycle that might make them more susceptible to aches and pains, or having less stability, or um, not feeling up to their usual practice. And so I think it's really useful for everyone to know at least some of this stuff to take care of people better in their classes, whatever kind of class it might be. Um, and, there are sometimes issues don't crop up straight after birth or even in the first 6 months, but it may be much further down the line, and it might have its root in not recovering fully during that postnatal year. Or, maybe they didn't notice any symptoms, but second time around or third time around with subsequent children, symptoms start to crop up. And initially they might not link it to their pregnancy and postnatal recovery. But if we have that understanding about what that woman's history in her body has been, and we can ask a few questions that can help us be like a detective and find out a bit more, then we're much better equipped to offer practices that are going to be of direct benefit to her right at this moment in time. Really important that women also understand that it's not one size fits all, and certainly as a teacher, it's not one size fits all, and the yoga has to fit the individual, not the other way around at all. So really important. Yeah,
Yeah,
even if we're
perfect.
doing a set sequence, um, yeah, there can be perfect yoga being done in Tadasana if that's challenging for someone, for whatever reason, because their back hurts or they're super, super tired because they've not slept for all week very well. So I came across Birthlight back in 2000, and I was very lucky to be accidentally booked onto one of our Birthlight refreshers, where I saw a whole range of different Birthlight practices for pregnancy, postnatal, with babies and toddlers and with couples, and some well women practices as well. And I kind of went, oh, there's a whole new universe of yoga that I had no idea about before. And so gradually I've trained in lots of the areas that we offer trainings in, and taught pregnancy yoga and yoga for postnatal recovery for a very long time as well. And I love the pregnancy yoga, but I have to say I love the postnatal even more. It's so under resourced in the NHS as it is. And, I think it's taken a long time for people to come to terms with, actually, no, that is something that is really useful, um, and that every woman can benefit from greatly. So we're not just talking about trying to get as quickly as possible to a classic asana. We're talking about how to help that woman in her daily life, looking after her young baby who has lots of needs. And so how can we fit some yoga into her day? So we're thinking about the off the mat yoga, not just in terms of yoga philosophy, but actual physical practices that she could do. So how could she walk with her baby that might be useful? Definitely the ergonomics of carrying, picking up, holding babies, and what effect that has on people's posture over time. And, we know from being yoga practitioners or teachers that posture, affects everything, how we breathe, how we feel emotionally. And so wrapping all those things together in small little bite-sized nuggets that can be fitted into someone's day, makes it actually doable, rather than thinking, well, if I go to class once a week for an hour and my baby feeds for half an hour during that time, then I don't know. Yeah, well, I've done my postnatal recovery back, right? So I'm fit to go back to whatever I was doing before or what I want to maybe take up. But unfortunately, as anyone knows who does any kind of sports training, it's a gradual thing. We build up slowly. Um, and, although obviously pregnancy and giving birth isn't an injury, it's not an illness, but it's a big event that has happened and it's had effects, and why wouldn't it, that's not a sort of negative thing to say about it, but women do need to recover. And there's lots of demands made on the body in early parenting, not just sleep, but physically holding an ever growing heavier baby as well has an effect on your posture, on your neck, on your shoulders. And so it's really trying to set up that nice habit of self-care in ways that are going to be as effective as possible as well, because there's not much time to do them in.